Greetings, travelers. This game is easy. That's right, you could have never believed it. It's not that hard. I know what you're wondering. What could have possibly set the chairman off this time? Did someone insult Nekopara or something? No, I'm once again constantly reminded why I separate myself from every gaming community on the planet, despite the fact that this is what I do for a living. Because the only people that have time to say anything ever are the people that are going to constantly complain about literally everything. I'm already the enemy of both the casuals and the optimizers of the Final Fantasy XIV community, so it's time for me to get angry yet again. I've said this in the past, but I barely keep up to date on current events in Final Fantasy XIV. I just live in blissful ignorance, casting Midare Setsugeka like a NEET who immerses himself in RP to escape reality. You want a funny experiment? Try saying that any job in Final Fantasy XIV is easy, and just watch as everyone who plays that job explains to you that, actually, you just don't understand the subtle nuance to, no,
oh God, what?
You don't understand the subtlety of being indistinguishable from any other keyboard or controller masher. I guess anyone who plays on a DDR pad is probably safe, though. I'm going to make this clear as day. Every single job is easy at a mediocre level.
It's very hard for me to disagree with this. I am not at the stage of the game where I can say he's right or wrong because I have not played all the jobs. But for someone who suffers from severe anxiety when starting new things and like getting herself accustomed to like new roles and stuff, I have to say that every single job that I've played so far has made that anxiety disappear very quickly because I realized that I can in fact do it. So I'm either super capable, super talented, just super OP, or everyone can learn these jobs. You know, take your pick.
Everything. It should be. It shouldn't be that hard to look at a job and have a basic idea of what you want to do. The only reason why people want their job to be regarded as hard is so they can be like a stereotypical Rick and Morty fan and stroke their cock while measuring their IQ. Most of the time I feel like I'm listening to toddlers talk about their toys and which ones are more complicated. It's still a fucking kid's toy. No one is doing anything that special. Occasionally there are little tricks.
As a toddler mom, I kind of, like, this kind of makes me feel so sad.
Like using a filler combo on Samurai to line things up, or forcing a Twin Snakes early on Monk to make things line up. Sure, but at a basic level, it's not that hard. A lot of times you're going to have to look some stuff up to hit the mediocre level, but even then, once you know what you're supposed to do, it's not that bad. You know why I insist on being called mediocre or adequate? Because I don't do anything special. If a fucking turbo casual like myself can do this, fucking anyone can. You want my nuclear take? I think previous expansion Summoner was easy as fuck. Literally as easy as anything else in the game. The fact that that is still one of my most controversial opinions is one of the funniest things to me on the planet. The only problem that previous Summoner had is that it wasn't straightforward with what you were supposed to do by looking at the buttons yourself. In my opinion, the skill floor was artificially increased by obfuscating the information and making it hard to figure out what you were supposed to press.
Reading the skills does go a long way. There's that moment, like, as someone who's currently going through that, I feel that every time I start something new. Do you know, like, when you log into the game and you feel like playing the game? And when you have nothing else to do and nothing else to level, but leveling that new job that you're about to start, you know in the back of your mind that you're gonna have to sit down a little bit and like read through your skills and your spells. And there's that little bit of like, aww moment when you just really want to play and you don't take that time immediately to read your new spells. your base package of spells at least. Let's say you start from level 30 or level 50 or whatever. You already have plenty of spells to read and you're like, oh, I don't feel like doing this right now. That's the worst thing you can do for yourself because you're never really going to go back and read them. You're just going to be pressing your buttons. You're going to realize that you're somehow muddling through dungeons and trials and whatnot, that no one's ever even saying anything to you, and you're gonna hit that level 90. You're gonna be like, okay, it's time to learn my job now. Or you're just gonna leave it and never play it because you never read through it and you never realized how fucking magical it feels to play your job properly and to get these effects procking and to use these spells in a way that you're actually feeling like you're helping your team, and that just kind of feels good.
which was to press everything as soon as possible and then summon Bahamut, and then go back to mashing Ruin 3, which is very different from mashing Gemshine. You also had to alternate between Phoenix and Bahamut every minute, which is very different from how the job plays now. Of course, I will clarify, I am talking about being mediocre. To be a top 0.1% summoner was probably the hardest job to optimize in the entire universe because it involved you taking Bahamut and Phoenix out to a nice dinner and then breaking their kneecaps to try to get them to function properly. You just didn't need to do that in order to be mediocre at the job. It still frustrated the ever-living shit out of me for getting soft punished for pet AI back then, but that's what it took to be the best. But the skill ceiling of a job has nothing to do with it being hard to play.
Luckily, the game still gives you the opportunity to learn your job, even if you're, I don't know, let's say you're level 80, trying to level 90. Every time you queue into a level 50 trial or whatever, you're going to have a very limited amount of skills. And the game basically tells you, like, okay, dude, here's the deal. Like, you're level 80, but this is something that you should have learned before. So it yet again gives you the chance to just try out that 1, 2, 3 combo and see what it actually is supposed to look like. And then once you have that figured out, you can, like, add little cooldowns and mitigation and stuff to your, mental job toolkit and actually use it.
Difficulty should be evaluated by the minimum amount of effort you'd have to put in to hit a decent level where you can do whatever it is that you want to do, or in the case of Final Fantasy XIV, clear the content that you want to clear. The only reason that Summoner is so straightforward now is because they made Dreadworm Trance and Summon Bahamut one button, removed Enkindle, and made all the spells instant cast during Bahamut phase. Now I want you to imagine previous expansion Summoner with these changes alone and tell me that the job would not be the most straightforward thing on the planet. Once again, if you can clear the hardest content in the game from the expansion by playing at a mediocre level, then it doesn't matter. When I say something is easy, it's like saying it is easy how to learn how the pieces move in chess. That's not going to be the hard part. Dancer might be easy, but you can still drift standard stepped into the void if you're not paying attention. The real challenge is doing your easy rotation while shit's being flung at you all over the place. At the same time, difficulty can be really hard to quantify because what people find difficult is going to vary from person to person. You might personally find something harder to play and something easier, and then someone else has it the other way around. Maybe, just maybe, you find some things easier or more difficult because of your own brain. In this case, though, we're still talking
Ouch.
about the difference between easy and easier. But come on, you want to know what isn't difficult, though? Pressing Fleeting Raiju after a Raiton? Yeah, that's right. When you had to press 2 gap closers after Raiton, I understood. I knew that people wouldn't like that you couldn't hold it in, like how you can't hold your shit. But now, after these changes, you want to know what this button is? It's a fucking combo action. But here, why give stacks if you can't hold it? It could be because you typically press Raitons back-to-back in burst windows, so letting you build up multiple Raijus actually makes it less clunky and more
I love how instead of probably investing into some form of, like, I don't know, therapy or whatever, Misshapen Chair decides to make a YouTube channel where every time he has a frustration, he lets it out and he's like, "This is my job now. I'm not gonna pay anyone else to listen to my frustration. I'm going to make money off of my frustrations."
Forgiving, so that you can still press Raiton and TCJ next to each other and not lose a Raiju. Man, it's almost like the developers wanted it to be convenient. Actually, I have a better question for you. What do you want to press instead? Another melee range weapon skill? The only thing I can possibly imagine is pressing Throwing Dagger because you held a Raiton but accidentally used it a little too early. If only you could have pressed Throwing Dagger first. This has to be one of the easiest things to play around in the entire game I have ever heard of. Yet I see people falling over and crying on the floor and pissing themselves over nothing. Holy shit. I bet you don't even complain that you can't hold Gallows or Gibbet on Reaper, because if you don't complain about that, that means that you can't even hold your own beliefs consistently. You want to know what else is fun? Nobody understands numbers. I already knew this because nobody likes math. It is funny watching people complain about numbers in this game. Oh, boo-hoo. Reaper does more raid damage than Samurai. I can't believe that the dev team hates us degenerate weeaboos. Oh, really? How big is this supposed difference anyways? Do you actually know? I guess I can do a little bit of research. Let's see. It's about 2.4% between Samurai and Monk, which is actually the top RDPS right now, but I bet you didn't even know that. Although Monk and Reaper's ass cheeks are right next to each other on the RDPS toilet seat. But RDPS tries to account for the buffs that jobs bring to the table. But what about just raw individual damage?
How about taking skills from the individual people into consideration? Like when you see these stats, you automatically assume that everyone's parsing 100 instead of just, instead of just getting the best that you can be at your own thing and then just realizing that not everyone else does that.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. Samurai does the most individual damage in the entire game. Crazy. This isn't a bad relationship between jobs that strictly do damage and jobs that provide buffs. You see, jobs that serve up buffs are then rewarded when jobs take those buffs and dish out more damage. This is a symbiotic relationship. And then I will still see some fucking mouth breather complaining that they do less individual damage as a ninja compared to a freestyle Sam. It's almost like you make the entire raid do 5% more damage every minute for 15 seconds. So of course Ninja's personal damage has to be lower. They have to account for trick attack if you want to make the game relatively balanced. Of course, poor Black Mage isn't the top individual DPS right now, which makes it so god-awful that you would never be able to clear the current Savage tier at all, let alone world fucking first. If you played Samurai before because it was the top DPS in the metagame, I'm gonna tell you something, you're not a Samurai player, you're a meta player.
Yeah, I want to try Savage, and I think that will probably be happening as soon as I move. I wanted to start like a couple of weeks ago, but I'm currently in the process of moving. This is actually my last weekend at this place. So, day after tomorrow, I'm actually leaving, and I am yet to get my fiber installed in my building, and that will probably take another, I don't know, week or two or so. So I'm working hard on that, and once I'm just like stable at my new and hopefully more permanent location, I will commit to that as well.
Go play Reaper or Monk and be happy. Oh, what's that? You don't like playing Reaper or Monk? Then play the job that you like to play. Is it still good enough to meet whatever DPS check you want? Then who gives a shit? Oh, no, I know what it is. You want the job that you personally have the most fun playing to also simultaneously be the best job in the metagame. Well, if we just take a look at how many jobs there are and assume that you have an equal chance that any one of them could be your favorite, the odds of that happening are pretty fucking slim. Get used to it. Welcome to reality. But you know what? You're right. Samurai is a very, very hard job to play. Much harder than previous expansion because they added in a whole extra 1.3 second cast time every 2 minutes, which is one of the easiest things to slide cast on the entire planet. Honestly, why not just slap a samurai nerf so I can see some more people blow a gasket? It would be more interesting to me, and I would continue to play the fucking job. But this goes back to what I said before. Every single job is easy. Job loyalty is like brand loyalty. I don't understand. If you aren't enjoying a job and you think a different one is more fun, if only you could play the one that's more fun for you. Or if you want to play the one that's more meta, you can play the one that's more meta. Here's an image of the world before and after you change your main job in Final Fantasy XIV. This next segment of the video will lower how fun this is overall, but allow me to clarify, there's nothing wrong with giving feedback. But there is a weird pervasive mentality that I find in many gaming communities, and that's when someone makes a mistake while playing a game, instead of trying to play better, they just lash out at the game itself, even if it's justified. But if you have all this time and energy to constantly bitch and moan about something, you have the time and energy to get better at it. I did
That's
my
true.
triple weave back in the day because that's what I had to do to make it work. And I even proceeded to stand still during my instant cast phase because I wanted Phoenix to do what it was supposed to do. What I noticed with Final Fantasy XIV especially is that because they listen to the player base so much, it's all about doing whatever they can to lower the amount of negative comments they receive on the forum. It's why they would rather buff every other job in the game rather than just ever so slightly toning down Reaper's damage. I am not going to say that that's the wrong approach, but I wonder if the motivations behind it come from a place of fear that people are going to complain when you literally cannot please everyone. When people see a job change like Tsubame Gaishi,
I think it just has a lot to do with what Yoshipi said about greed. He does have the mentality of, a man who does want to please everyone, like all the players. And historically, it's been working out. That's how Final Fantasy became big in the first place. So I see nothing wrong with it.
on Samurai and
You want people to be happy, right?
decide to quit the game because of something so insignificant, I cannot help but think that you're a massive baby. But I'm also a massive child because I've complained about job design in the past too, so how am I any different? So with all of this, I'm gonna help you understand your own emotions like a very shitty therapist. If you don't like the way that a job feels, that means that you don't like how it feels on a personal level. It doesn't automatically make the job fundamentally bad from a number or a gameplay standpoint. Of all the things to start shitting on the floor over, this is pretty petty. It's still important for the devs to know what the majority of players don't like, but it's still going to be a personal opinion at the end of the day. You are allowed to like previous expansion Summoner, even though you're wrong. So anyways, put Blood Weapon on a charge system, but leave Fighter Flight and No Mercy alone. But who knows, maybe we're going to have to make those accessible too. It's not like it's going to make the job play any different. Also, if you end up finding this game too easy to play, here's my pipeline for you. Start beating all the hardest content in the game. Once you do that, do it on every single job. Then start optimizing every single job with your spare time. And if it's still too easy, pee-pee boring for you, maybe take a little break from the game and go touch some ass. I'm going to crawl back into my cave yet again and close my eyes, reminding myself to never look at anything that anyone ever says about any game ever. Now let's get out there and stop being a little bitch about micro difficulties when it comes to playing a job at a moderate level.
He has a point. Wow. I don't know. I agree, to be honest. Like I don't like I can't comment negatively on anything said here whatsoever because everything is just so individual, and I don't know. People who just spend their time on Twitter and other social media just repeatedly complaining about these things, like they should try game balancing, especially MMO balancing themselves for a little
On to
bit.
making tier lists.